So if you have not heard, Hunter Biden has actually been indicted on 9 new charges in California in reference to taxes. Now, I told you before when they were trying to get Hunter Biden on this, I said that this is actually minuscule compared to what they really should be going after him for, and that's those business dealings in Ukraine. But that would also implicate Joe Biden, which is why I think it's going to be harder for them to get him on that. So sometimes what do they do when they're trying to catch you on something, but they can't get you on the big thing? They'll try to get you on something smaller just to get you. And that are these tax charges here in reference to Hunter Biden. Now, this gets a little complex. I want to start out talking about the charges first, and then I want to talk about this idea of trying to hold Hunter Biden in contempt. We'll get into that in just a second. But first, we're going to get started with this clip here from Fox News. Hunter Biden to be indicted in California. Let's go.
Stay there, though, because I want to bring in Fox News contributor and George Washington University law professor, Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, we don't know the details, but this is a bombshell. Central District of California, federal grand jury had been convened in Los Angeles. It looks like from the early reporting that this could be related to criminal tax violations. A lot of money coming into Hunter through various accounts, various channels, could perhaps not have been accounted for, because a lot of questions would be asked if you did account for them in your taxes. What's your reaction to this?
Well, we've been watching this district because this is where the special counsel originally wanted to bring tax charges and was effectively prevented from doing so. Both the U.S. attorneys in California and D.C. admit that they said, no, we're not going to work with you on this. Ultimately, he was given special counsel status, and there was a great deal of pressure because of the House investigation of the enormous amounts of money that were brought in by Hunter Biden from these sources. And so we've been expecting this, obviously, as a possibility. There's a couple of things here that we are going to have to wait to see. The likelihood is that it is, in fact, criminal tax charges. The likelihood is that they're felony charges. But the Department of Justice allowed the statute of limitations to run on the most serious allegations facing Hunter Biden. These large sums of money that came in around 2017. When this matter was being handled by this team, including these whistleblowers who testified before Congress, they warned the Justice Department, as did others of us in print, that you're allowing the statute of limitations to run. I mean, this was an openly discussed issue, not just in the Department of Justice, but in editorials. And they did precisely that. They let the statutes expire. So the question is, what are they charging and what did they lose? The second issue that is going to become more of a problem next week is whether Hunter Biden uses the indictment to invoke the Fifth Amendment, to refuse to testify, to say, well, now I'm charged with tax charges, and I don't want to go into particularly a closed session where you ask me these questions.
Let me pause there and explain a little bit to you here. So Hunter Biden has agreed to testify, but here's the dilemma. So he wants to testify in public. He wants this to be a public hearing. And from what I understand, the Republican Party actually wants this to be a closed session. Now, then there's that question of why would they want it to be a closed session, right? If it's a closed session, there's obviously, they could say there's things that he said that he didn't say, et cetera, and it's not available to the public. But the other thing is there could be some things that Hunter Biden may reveal about other people. You never know. I could imagine Hunter Biden saying, yes, I'm going to testify, but I'm going to take other people down with me. And who knows who those other people may be, but I'm sure it wouldn't be someone in the Democratic Party. So there's also that issue as well. But he has agreed to testify. Now, the Republican Party is saying that they're going to try to hold him in contempt. Now, from what I understand, if you hold someone in contempt, it's because they do not want to testify. But he has agreed to testify, just not in private. He wants to testify in public. So I wanted to go ahead and explain that to you so you understand what he's talking
I
about.
offered to testify in public. You said no. Now I've been indicted just before I was to appear before Congress. And now I'll just invoke my right to remain silent. That's a possibility.
Well, right now, we don't have the document, but someone decided to leak the fact that this indictment was coming down, Jonathan. I don't want to get into the rank speculation game here, but it's not clear that Hunter knew about the indictment before the public at large knew about the indictment. And walk us through that, because when you're indicted for something, you're usually given a heads up, correct?
Right.
You're told you're a target, and then you're told an indictment's forthcoming. It's not just like out of the blue.
Right. They knew this torpedo was in the water. The question is, did they know the indictment was about to be handed down? As you know, Laura, these leaks coming out of the Biden and Trump investigations have been a torrent during some periods. It's coming. Much of this seems to be coming from the Department of Justice, which has been a.
Well, I'm sure Hunter Biden knew that let's look at it this way, folks. I'm pretty sure he knew that if he were going to be indicted, that it would happen before the 2024 election. I'm pretty sure he probably figured that would be the case.
Accused in the past of leaks. I mean, one of the things that came out of Russiagate was known leaks by the Department of Justice, high-ranking FBI officials. Even James Comey was accused of taking material and leaking it to the press after he was fired. So there is this culture, the Department of Justice, to use strategic leaks. Now, we don't know where the leak is coming from here, but the obvious parties that would know would be, of course, the Department of Justice, and then secondarily, whether they inform the defense. It's not clear why the defense would want this to leak.
Right.
But as I said, this does give them a possible out where they can say, well, we've now had our hand forced. You didn't accept our offer. We've now been indicted a second time. We're just going to invoke his right to remain silent. That would force Congress to give him immunity if they wanted to hear from him, which they're not going to do because he's facing charges.
Oh, it's not going to happen now. You're 100% right. This in a perverse way, just on that one issue, it is a very, very strange gift to Hunter Biden, but obviously not long term. I want to remind everyone what was said yesterday at a press conference when Joe Biden was asked directly about his family's business dealings, Hunter's business dealings. Watch.
Can you explain to the Americans, amid this impeachment inquiry, why you interacted with so many of your son and brother's foreign business associates?
First of all, Joe Biden looks so lost. Joe Biden looks incredibly lost. He just has this look on his face like, why am I standing here? Why am I answering these questions? Why am I here?
I'm not going to comment on that. I did not. And it's just a bunch of lies.
You didn't interact with many of their business associates?
I did not. There's lies.
I mean, Jonathan, that's just false. I mean, we have multiple occasions. I mean, it's bizarre. We have multiple pieces of evidence indicating that he spoke to Hunter's business associates dozens and dozens of times and had dinner with them and went golfing with them.
Well, it reminds me of Clinton's sort of chest poking, saying, I did not have intimate relations with that woman. I mean, basically, he's saying, I did not have interactions with those people. It didn't work for Clinton. And it's even more insulting here. You know, you have a poll showing that roughly 70% of the American people don't believe the president. They believe that he has done something unlawful or unethical. And by the way, 40% of Democrats feel that way. And so the question is, with almost half of the Democratic Party, you don't have a single Democratic member who we expect will vote for the impeachment inquiry, just the inquiry to investigate these issues, not to vote on impeachment, but to look into, to establish whether there's grounds for impeachment. They very likely will not have a single Democrat, even though a large proportion of their party believes that there was something corrupt here. But what the president is facing is a trap of his own making. He ran for office promising assuring the American people that he had no knowledge of these transactions, of these dealings. That has been directly contradicted. Hunter Biden himself contradicted his father on that. But you have Hunter's close associate saying that that's absolute nonsense, that of course he knew. But can the president now admit that? Clearly, he doesn't think he can. So he's in this sort of frozen in amber with a story that he cannot possibly maintain.
I mean,
it's just it's the usual suspects, right? They're just corrupt. That's what it is. It doesn't matter if it's Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Donald Trump, whoever, they're just corrupt. Now, here's the thing. If Hunter Biden, because again, indicted does not mean that he has been convicted. Okay. So if Hunter Biden is found guilty, which I have a feeling he's not going to be, or if he is, it'll be something minor. I don't think Hunter Biden is going to go to jail because of who he is and because of who his father is. But if he were, I wonder if there would be a push from the Democratic Party to urge Joe Biden to step down and to allow someone else to run. I sincerely wonder about that. It's something we need to think about. That's why I'm telling you, I really do believe that he knew that if he was going to be indicted, it would happen before the 2024 election.
Mind-blowing. Just very quickly, Sean, given how unpredictable this investigation is, and we don't know the terms of the indictment, we don't know the counts, probably criminal tax, what's what a source is telling NBC tonight. But we don't know what else is going to be discovered as this thing rolls on about Joe Biden. Well, so this becomes a huge political liability. Again, this is a political question, a liability for this party going into 2024. It certainly doesn't help.
It does, because the IRS, the DOJ, and the FBI, the politics there were protecting Hunter, Joe, and Jim Biden. Now with the dam breaking, we don't know where, the White House doesn't know where this investigation is going to go, and it very well may lead to Joe's brother and Joe himself. You asked if Joe Biden was going to get out of politics. Could this blow up his campaign? Absolutely not. Now more than ever, Joe Biden needs and has to win, because he is the only one that's going to pardon his son if he is convicted.
So something that, first of all, Sean, every time I see you, all I just see is Sean from the Real World Boston. Like every time I see him, that's all I see. You will always be Sean from Real World Boston to me. Sorry. But this is something I want you to see. We're going to go into a little bit more detail about the situation, because the reality is right now, we basically have two corrupt people, but we have a bunch of crooks running for president. Here's more detail here. Hunter Biden is indicted on 9 tax charges, adding to gun charges in a special counsel investigation. So it goes on to say here, the new charges filed Thursday, there were 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors. These are in addition to federal firearm charges in Delaware, alleging Hunter Biden broke laws against drug users having guns in 2018. So I want to be very clear. These are added on to those other previous charges. Now, let's be clear. If you knew anybody that wasn't wealthy or famous, doesn't come from a prominent, political family, if they had 3 felonies, let's not even mention the 6 misdemeanors, 3 felonies, oh, this will be over, right? Especially if you were poor. You're going to jail. But because of who he is, he'll find a way to get out of this. It goes on to say they come after the implosion of a plea deal over that summer that would have spared him jail time, putting the case on track to a possible trial as his father campaigns for re-election. Hunter Biden spent millions of dollars on an extravagant lifestyle rather than paying his tax bills. That's coming from special counsel David Weiss. These charges are centered on at least $1.4 million in taxes Hunter Biden owed between 2016 and 2019, a period where he has acknowledged struggling with addiction. So I'm going to say this again. If any average Joe Schmo owed $1.4 million in taxes, you're just going to jail. No one want to hear your sob story. Like if you tell them, oh, I was struggling with some type of addiction at that point, yeah, they wouldn't care. The criminal justice does not care about people that don't have money. They care about, if you have money and you have name recognition, they care about you. Other than that, you're probably going to jail. It goes on to say the back taxes have since been paid. Let's go on. If convicted, Hunter Biden, 53, could receive a maximum of 17 years in prison. The special counsel probe remains open, Weiss said. Again, I don't think Hunter Biden is going to go to jail for 17 years. Again, think about who he is. In a fiery response, defense attorney Abby Lowell accused Weiss of bowing to Republican pressure in the case. Based on the facts and the law, if Hunter's last name was anything other than Biden, the charges in Delaware and now California would not have been brought. The White House declined to comment on Thursday's indictment, referring questions to the Justice Department or Hunter Biden's personal representatives. The charging documents filed in California, which is where he lives, detail spending on drugs, strippers, luxury hotels, and exotic cars. In short, everything but his taxes. The indictment comes as congressional Republicans pursue an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, claiming he was engaged in an influence peddling scheme with his son. The House is expected to vote next week on formally authorizing the inquiry. No evidence has emerged so far to prove that Joe Biden in his current or previous office abused his role or accepted bribes, though questions have arisen about the ethics surrounding the Biden's family international business. I just want to highlight here and push back on something where it says no evidence. Actually, when there was that press conference with certain Republicans from the House, they actually said that they had documentation to show that there were shell companies, meaning these were companies that were not real, they're not real businesses. But basically what Hunter Biden made it seem like there was money going to a company that did not exist. So they like made up these companies, but that money, that foreign money was actually coming into the Biden family. So just to correct that there. The separate long-running criminal investigation into Hunter Biden had been expected to wind down with a plea deal where he would have gotten 2 years probation after pleading guilty to misdemeanor tax charges and avoided prosecution on the gun charge if he stayed out of trouble. The agreement was pilloried as a sweetheart deal by Republicans, including former President Donald Trump. Trump is facing his own criminal cases, including charges that he plotted to overturn such and such. We know that. Representative James Comer, Republican of Kentucky, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, gave credit for the new charges Thursday to 2 IRS investigators who testified before Congress that the Justice Department has mishandled and slow-walked the investigation into the president's son. Justice officials have denied those allegations. The 2 IRS employees, Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler, said the indictment was a complete vindication of a thorough investigation. The new charges against Hunter Biden include filing a false return. Wow. That actually is criminal. Filing a false return, tax evasion felonies, as well as misdemeanor failure to file and failure to pay. You know, there is one Spiro Agnew. Spiro Agnew was accused of tax evasion. Let me see something really quick, because I thought Spiro, I'm just curious if he actually, Spiro Agnew, yes. So Spiro Agnew resigned. He was vice president. He resigned in 1973 after being implicated in a tax fraud scandal. He pled no contest to a felony. I just want to see if he actually served time. So he Soon after his resignation, Agnew moved to his summer home in Ocean City to cover urgent tax and legal bills and living expenses. He borrowed $200,000 from his friend Frank Sinatra. Yeah, Frank Sinatra was involved in politics in some way. Yada, yada. He hoped for appeal. So no, he didn't. Yeah, he did not serve any time. Okay, that's what I was looking. Okay, so he didn't serve any time. That's why I said I doubt, because of who his name is, he probably won't. Sorry, guys. That was back in Nixon's day. For some of you kind of wondering, like, who the hell is Spiro Agnew? That was back in Nixon's day. Let's continue on. The defense signaled that it plans to fight the new charges, likely at least in part relying on immunity provisions from the original plea deal. Defense attorneys have argued those remain in force since that part of the agreement was signed by a prosecutor before the deal was scrapped. Prosecutors have disagreed, pointing out the documents weren't signed by a judge and are invalid. Lowell said he's also planning to push for dismissal of the gun charges next week, calling them unprecedented and unconstitutional. So the 3 federal gun charges filed in Delaware allege Hunter Biden had lied about his drug use to buy a gun that he kept for 11 days in 2018. So I just want to tell you, for example, rapper T.I. went to prison for that. Possessing a gun, just keep that in mind. Federal laws ban gun possession by habitual drug users, though the measure is seldom seen as a standalone charge and has been called into question by a federal appeals court. Hunter Biden's long-standing struggle with substance abuse worsened after the death of his brother, Beau Biden, in 2015, according to the court documents and his memoir, Beautiful Things, which ends with him getting clean in 2019. His gross income, nevertheless, totaled some $7 million between 2016 and 2020, prosecutors said, pointing to his roles on the board of the Ukrainian energy company Burisma and a Chinese private equity fund, as well as his position at a law firm. So we'll have to wait to see what happens. But like I said, just remember, indictment doesn't mean that he is being convicted. And you also have to remember, yes, he still has to testify. There is this debate whether or not it's going to be in public or a closed door hearing. The Republicans want a closed door hearing. Hunter Biden wants to do this in public. So the Republicans are saying that he is in contempt technically, but technically you're not in contempt if you are still willing to testify. Like I said before, I think because of who he is, because he's Joe Biden's son, I think he'll find a way to get off on this.